Sarah, if you can hear this, I'm still here. I'm at the station in Bozeman, 107.1 FM, and I'm not leaving until the generator dies. It's 4:14 p.m., Tuesday, and the sky isn't blue anymore. It's the color of a bruised lung, heavy and suffocating. The silence in the streets is worse than the noise was. There's no wind, just the sound of ash falling like gray snow. I have about 6 hours of fuel left in the backup rig, and then this frequency goes dark for good. My name is Elias Thorne, and I'm going to keep talking until the air runs out or the lights go out. I'm starting with the people I know are out there, like Miller from the hardware store who called me an hour ago. He said the roof of the grocery store just gave way under the weight of the gray dust. This isn't just a storm, and it isn't just Wyoming. It's the ground itself turning against us. I need to tell you what happened and what's coming because the official alerts stopped an hour ago. They told us it was just seismic activity, but we all saw the horizon turn into a wall of fire. If you're listening, get inside, seal the gaps in your windows with anything you have, and don't breathe the air. Miller, if you're still at the shop, stay off the roof. It's heavier than it looks. We always knew Yellowstone was a sleeping giant, but nobody tells you what it sounds like when it wakes up. It's not a bang, it's a low, constant vibration that you feel in your teeth before you hear it in your ears. The USGS has monitored this park for decades, tracking every little tremor and heat change in the ground. They saw the 3 massive eruptions from the past, the ones from 2 million years ago and 640,000 years back. We all treated it like a tourist attraction, a giant chemistry set in the backyard of the American West. But the Lava Creek Tuff eruption wasn't a science project. It was 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock spat into the sky. That's enough rock and fire to bury every memory we've ever made under a mountain of soot. I remember talking to a geologist named Dr. Eris back in May. He was worried about the ground deformation. He told me the Yellowstone Plateau is a living, breathing thing that moves inches every single year. Most people ignored him, thinking the 0.00014% annual chance meant it would never happen soon. We gamble on those odds every day, but today, the house finally won. The first sign wasn't the eruption itself, but the animals, thousands of them moving in a blind panic. Then the power lines started humming a different tune, a high-pitched whine that set every dog howling. I saw a flash on the horizon that looked like a second sun rising in the west, and then the world went white. That was the moment the national grid felt the first shock, a surge that blew transformers from here to Denver. Even a millimeter of this ash can cause high-voltage flashovers, and right now it's coming down in inches. If you're in a car, pull over and turn the engine off immediately. The filters will clog in seconds. This ash isn't dust. It's tiny shards of glass and rock that will shred your lungs if you breathe. I've got a call coming in from a woman named Clara in Casper. Clara, you're on the air. Can you hear me? She's gone. The line just cut to static, but before it did, I heard her windows shattering. That's what this stuff does. It builds up on roofs until the wood screams and the rafters give way. NASA once proposed drilling into the magma to cool it down, a $1 billion plan to save the world. They said it could prevent a volcanic winter that would drop global temperatures by several degrees for years. But we didn't drill, and we didn't prepare, and now the winter is coming early in the middle of July. The Great Plains, our entire breadbasket, is being buried under a layer of gray that will kill every crop. Computer models always said the ash would reach both coasts within days, traveling on high-altitude winds. I'm looking at the radar on my laptop, the last thing that works, and the plume is already crossing into Nebraska. It looks like a giant, dark hand reaching out to choke the life out of the continent. If you have a hand crank radio, keep it close. It's the only way we're going to stay connected. I'm thinking about my brother in Seattle. He probably thinks he's safe because he's 1,000 miles away. But the ash doesn't care about distance. It cares about the wind, and the wind is blowing east. We're looking at a VEI 8 event, The kind of explosion that reshapes the map of the world. That means more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material is airborne, blocking out the sun. I can see the streetlights flickering outside. The grid is fighting a losing battle against the conductive dust. Every time a transformer blows, it sounds like a gunshot in the distance, followed by oppressive darkness. I want you to remember the smell of rain, because we won't be smelling that for a very long time. It's going to be sulfur and burnt stone until the atmosphere finally decides to settle down. I've got enough water in the back room for a week, but after that, I don't know what the plan is. Nobody really has a plan for the end of the world. We just have reactions and regrets. I'm looking at an old paper map of the park, tracing the lines of the caldera that finally opened up. It's strange to think that something so beautiful could be so incredibly violent when it's pushed too far. I'm hearing reports of martial law being declared in the cities further east, but out here, there's no one. It's just us, the radio and the falling gray. If you're scared, that's okay. I'm terrified too. I'll be here as long as the 107.1 signal stays strong. We've survived hard times before. We find a way to endure, one day at a time. Keep your receivers on. I'll be back in 30 minutes with another update, if the sky allows it. This is the last frequency. Stay safe. Sarah, if you're out there, I need you to listen. I know you were heading toward the Gallatin Range, but the air is different now. It's not just smoke. It's ground-up glass and rock. The USGS says this is a VEI 8 event, the highest rating on the index. That means over 1,000 cubic kilometers of the Earth just went into the sky. It's more than a disaster. It's a global shift. Stay inside. I just lost a signal from Mike in Billings. He was describing the sound, not a bang, but a continuous roar that felt like it was coming from inside his own chest. That makes sense, considering the 640,000-year-old Lava Creek Tuff eruption did the exact same thing. It ejected enough material to bury half the continent. Mike said his roof was groaning under the weight. He didn't finish his sentence. To anyone still driving, pull over, stop the engine. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln warns that this ash is highly abrasive. It's not like wood ash, it's jagged silica. It will clog your air filters in minutes, and then your engine will seize. If you're stuck on the I-90, you're better off staying in the car with the vents closed than trying to push through the dark. The lights just flickered again. I'm looking at the USGS reports on my tablet while the battery lasts. They've documented 3 of these super eruptions over the last 2.1 million years. We always talked about it being overdue, but the scientists tried to tell us the annual probability was only 0.00014%. We took those odds. We built cities on those odds. Now, the house has finally won. If you can hear me in the Midwest, start sealing your windows. The models from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems show the ash reaching both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. It doesn't matter how far you think you are from Wyoming. The wind is carrying the tomb of the American breadbasket east, and it's moving faster than the emergency alerts can keep up with. I've got a caller on the line from Casper. No, the line just went dead. Before he cut out, he said the power transformers were exploding like fireworks. The USGS warned about this. Even a single millimeter of this ash can cause high-voltage flashovers. The grid isn't failing because the plants are down. It's failing because the air itself has become a conductor for short circuits. NASA is already talking about the volcanic winter. They've run the numbers before, suggesting an eruption of this scale could drop global temperatures by several degrees for years. We aren't just looking at a bad week or a bad month. We are looking at the end of summer. We are looking at a world where the sun is a memory and the crops don't grow. The smell is the worst part. It's sulfur and burnt stone. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says the ash is toxic to inhale. It's tearing up the lungs of anyone caught outside. I'm wearing a damp cloth over my face just to sit here in the studio. If you have an N95 mask from the pandemic, find it. It's the most valuable thing you own right now. I remember walking near Old Faithful last summer. The National Park Service had all those signs about the hydrothermal changes. We watched the pools boil and thought it was a tourist attraction. We didn't realize the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory was watching the ground deform in real time, seeing the beast wake up. They saw the signs, but how do you evacuate a continent? The weight of it is what breaks you. A few inches of ash on a roof is heavier than snow. It's like pouring wet concrete over your house. In the Great Plains, roofs are already starting to give way. I'm hearing reports of families trapped in their own living rooms. If you can safely sweep your roof, do it, but don't breathe the dust. It's a deadly trade-off. Water is the next crisis. The ash is clogging the filters at the treatment plants. If you have a bathtub, fill it now. If you have bottles, fill them. Once the pump sees, that's it. We are back to the 1800s, but without the clean wells. Everything out there is contaminated with heavy metals and glass. Don't drink the rain. The rain is poison now. I'm thinking about my brother in Denver. He always said the mountains would protect them, but the computer models show the ash doesn't care about topography. It climbs the peaks and settles in the valleys. Denver is likely under 6 inches of gray by now. If you're listening in Colorado, stay off the roads. The friction from the ash can melt tires and stall transmissions. The silence is what gets to you. No birds, no planes. The FAA grounded everything the moment the plume hit 30,000 feet. Jet engines are basically furnaces. They suck in the ash, melt it into glass, and the engines flame out. The sky belongs to the volcano now. We are grounded, isolated in our little pockets of darkness, waiting for a morning that might not come. I have a battery-powered shortwave radio here. I'm picking up fragments from Salt Lake City. They're talking about the long night. It's a poetic name for a terrifying reality. When you eject 1,000 cubic kilometers of debris, you create a sunshade for the planet. The thermal energy of the sun just can't get through. The mercury is dropping. It's June, and I can see my breath. NASA once proposed a plan to drill into the volcano to cool it down. They thought they could vent the heat and save us. It was a multi-billion-dollar idea that stayed on the shelf. I wonder if the people who made that decision are sitting in the dark like we are, wondering if the cost of drilling was really higher than the cost of losing everything. The USGS says the probability of another caldera forming eruption was exceedingly low. They weren't lying. It was low. But low isn't zero. We live in a world of statistics until we don't. When you're the 0.00014%, the math doesn't offer much comfort. The geological history of this place is written in fire, and we just happen to be the ones standing there when the next chapter started. I'm looking at a photo of my daughter on the desk. She's in Seattle. The models say the West Coast gets hit too, depending on the jet stream. If the wind shifts, the Pacific Northwest becomes a graveyard of electronics and machinery. I just want to tell her I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't take the warnings more seriously. We thought the Earth was solid. We were wrong. The backup generator is rattling. It's struggling with the ash in the intake. I've tried to clear it twice, but the air out there is like breathing a sandstorm. Every time I open the door, more of the gray death slides into the room. I'm running out of rags to seal the gaps. But I'm still here. 107.1 FM is still here. We aren't going quiet yet. They call it a supervolcano because it doesn't just erupt, it resets the clock. It changes the chemistry of the soil and the temperature of the oceans. The 1.3 million-year-old eruption and the 2.1 million-year-old one before it left scars on the planet that never fully healed. We are witnessing a geological epoch happen in a single Tuesday afternoon. It's humbling. It's horrifying. To the person listening in the car, or the cellar, or the attic, you are not alone. There are millions of us tucked away in the shadows, waiting. Keep your spirits up. Share your food. Watch each other's backs. The government might be silent, but we still have voices. We still have each other. I'll keep talking as long as the fuel holds out. Don't give up. I just received a relay from a ham operator in Casper, Wyoming. He says the weight of the ash is literally crushing the town. A single inch of this stuff weighs almost 10 pounds per square foot when it's dry, and it's starting to rain. That wet ash turns into a heavy gray sludge that's bringing down roofs and snapping power lines like they're pieces of twine. People are trapped inside their own homes. The rain isn't helping. It's creating lahars, massive mud flows of volcanic debris that are scouring the river valleys. The USGS warned that ashfall would be thick enough to clog every water filter and engine across the Great Plains. If you are near a river, you need to move to higher ground now. The water isn't water anymore. It's a liquid concrete that will bury everything in its path. I'm looking at the old maps of the Lava Creek Tuff eruption from 640,000 years ago. That event ejected 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock. To put that in perspective, that's enough to bury the entire state of Texas under 5 feet of debris. We always treated those numbers as ancient history, something for textbooks. We never thought we'd be the ones measuring the depth of the tuff in our own backyards. The power grid is flickering again. Even a tiny amount of ash, just a millimeter, can cause high-voltage flashovers at substations. The particles are conductive when wet and abrasive when dry. The insulators are failing coast to coast. If the grid goes, we lose the pumps for the water, the heat for our homes, and the very signal I'm using to talk to you. The darkness is physical now. I heard a report that the breadbasket is gone. Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, the places that feed the world, are covered in a gray shroud. The ash is made of tiny, jagged glass shards. It doesn't just sit on the crops, it shreds the leaves and poisons the soil chemistry. We aren't just looking at a bad harvest, we are looking at the end of American agriculture as we knew it. Food is the new gold. If you are outside, you must cover your face. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says this ash is toxic. It's not like wood ash from a fireplace. This is pulverized rock. It's abrasive. It will tear your lungs if you breathe it in deeply. Use a damp cloth, a mask, anything. We're seeing the first cases of volcanic asthma in the shelters, and there's no medicine coming to help. I remember reading about the 1.3-million-year-old eruption. It was one of the 3 super eruptions that shaped the Yellowstone Plateau. Back then, there were no cities, no grids, no fragile supply chains. The Earth just took the hit and moved on. But we've built a world that relies on precision and clean air. The very things that made us modern are the things making us vulnerable today. The wind is carrying the plume east. Computer models from the university suggested the ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. It's a continental-scale disaster. I wonder if the people in New York or D.C. realized how connected they were to a park in Wyoming. The geography of the United States is being rewritten by a hole in the ground 2,000 miles away. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, came by an hour ago. He's 80. He lived through the Great Depression, but he said he's never seen a sky this color. He brought me a jug of water he'd saved before the pipes clogged. It's those small acts that keep the dread at bay. We're all we've got now. If you have extra water, share it. If you have a warm coat, give it to someone shivering. The temperature is still dropping. NASA's old warnings about a volcanic winter are coming true in real time. By ejecting so much sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, the volcano has created a global mirror. It's reflecting the sun's heat back into space. They predicted a drop of several degrees worldwide for years. This isn't just a bad week. This is a change in the climate that will last for a generation. I'm hearing reports of ash lightning. The friction between the particles in the plume creates massive static charges. The sky above the park is a constant strobe light of violet and blue flashes. It's beautiful in a way that makes you want to scream. It's nature's way of reminding us that we are guests here, and our lease just got canceled without notice. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory is likely dark now. They were the ones watching the seismic activity and ground deformation. They saw the floor of the caldera rising for years. They warned us that the magma chamber was recharging. But how do you prepare for something that happens once every few 100,000 years? You don't. You just watch the monitors until they go blank. I've got a shortwave signal from Denver. It's faint, but they're saying the airport is a graveyard. Hundreds of planes are stuck on the tarmac, buried up to their engines in gray dust. Thousands of travelers are sleeping on the floor, waiting for a flight that will never take off. The world has become very large again. Travel is a memory. We are all stuck exactly where we stood when the Earth opened. I keep thinking about the 2.1 million year old eruption, the Huckleberry Ridge Tuff. It was even bigger than this one. The Earth has survived this before. The forests will eventually grow back, and the soil will be richer for it in 1,000 years. But that doesn't help the man in the car whose engine just seized because the air filter is packed with glass. We live in human time, not geological time. The radio station's roof is groaning. I can hear the rafters creaking under the weight of the fallout. I should go up there and sweep it off, but the air is a death sentence without a respirator. I'll stay here. If the roof comes down, I'll go down with the mic open. At least there will be a record that we tried to keep the light on until the very end. They say the ash is reaching the Great Lakes. The water intake systems for Chicago and Detroit are at risk. If the ash gets into the pumps, the bearings will grind to a halt in minutes. Millions of people without tap water. We take for granted the invisible machines that keep us alive. Now those machines are being choked by the very earth they were built upon. I just heard a click on the line. I think the phone relay just died. That's another domino. First the power, then the water, now the communication. We're being pushed back into the 19th century, hour by hour. But we still have the radio. As long as I have fuel for this generator, I am your neighbor. I am the voice in the dark. Don't let the silence win. The sulfur smell is getting stronger. It's like rotten eggs, but sharp enough to sting your eyes. It's the gas from the magma, carried on the wind. It reacts with moisture in the air to create acid rain. If you have a garden, it's likely gone. If you have a car, the paint is probably bubbling. The very air has turned hostile. Stay inside. Seal your windows with whatever you have. I'm thinking of Sarah. She was a geologist I interviewed last year. She told Yellowstone was a living, breathing giant. She said we were lucky to live in a time when it was quiet. I wonder where she is now. I hope she made it to a shelter. I hope she's somewhere safe, explaining to people that the Earth isn't angry. It's just doing what it has always done. The generator is coughing. The fuel is low, and the air intake is struggling again. I'm going to have to step away to clear the filters. If the signal drops, don't panic. I'll be back. Keep your receivers tuned to 107.1. We are the last frequency in this valley, and we aren't giving up the ghost yet. Stay strong. I'll be right back. I'm back. The generator intake was caked in a half-inch of gray glass. I had to scrape it off with a putty knife while holding my breath. It's 3:14 a.m. now. The wind has shifted, and the sound outside has changed. It's no longer a whistle. It's a heavy, muffled thudding, like the world is being wrapped in a thick wool blanket. That's the weight of the ash falling on the roof. It's silent, and it's absolute. I just got a patch through from a ham operator in Casper. He says the weight of the ash is collapsing the big box stores. Those flat-roofed warehouses weren't built for this. According to the University of Nebraska, just a few inches of this stuff can bring a roof down, especially if it gets wet. It's not like snow. It doesn't melt. It just sits there, getting heavier and heavier until the steel gives way. Think about the sheer volume of what's coming out of that hole in the ground. The Lava Creek Tuff eruption, about 640,000 years ago, spit out 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock and ash. That is a number the human brain can't really grasp. Imagine the entire state of Texas buried under several feet of debris. That is the scale of the monster we are waking up to. We are ants living on a furnace. I'm looking at an old map of the power grid. It's a spider web of vulnerability. The USGS warned us that even a single millimeter of ash, the thickness of a credit card, can cause a high voltage flashover. The insulators on the power lines get coated, the electricity jumps the gap, and the transformers explode. That's why the lights went out so fast. The grid didn't just fail, it committed suicide to stay safe. The air out there isn't just dirty, it's toxic. This isn't wood smoke. These are tiny, jagged shards of volcanic glass and pulverized rock. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says these particles are small enough to get deep into your lungs. Once they're in, they don't come out. They turn into a heavy mud in your chest. If you're listening to this and you don't have a mask, use a wet cloth. Anything is better than nothing. I remember reading a report from NASA about how to stop this. They actually proposed a plan to drill into the magma chamber and pump in high-pressure water to cool it down. It would have cost billions, and they would have had to do it for thousands of years just to see a result. We always think we can engineer our way out of anything, but tonight, the Earth proved that some things are just too big for us to fix. The silence on the AM band is the scariest part. Usually, you can pick up signals from hundreds of miles away at night, but the ash in the atmosphere is ionizing the air, messing with the radio waves. It's like a curtain has been pulled across the continent. I'm shouting into a void, hoping there's a pocket of clear air where my voice can land. If you can hear me in Omaha or Des Moines, know that we're still here. We always called it the breadbasket, the Great Plains, but right now the wheat and corn are being smothered. Computer models from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems showed that the ash would reach both coasts within days. It's not just the local crops, it's the global food supply. We aren't just looking at a dark night, we're looking at a very hungry year. The soil that fed us is now the blanket that kills. I've got a caller on the backup line. It's David from Bozeman. David, you're on the air. He says the snowplows are out, trying to clear the streets, but they're just moving the ash into giant piles. It's like a gray version of a blizzard, but the snow doesn't melt. It's clogging the intake of the plows and killing the engines. Even the machines we use to save ourselves are turning into statues in the street. The USGS monitors this place 24/7 through the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. They watch every tremor, every bulge in the ground. They knew the pressure was building, but nobody can predict the exact second the cork pops. They gave us the warnings they could, but how do you prepare a nation for the sky falling? You can't. You just watch the monitor until the screen goes black. The temperature is dropping. It's not just the night chill. As the ash reaches the stratosphere, it forms a sulfur aerosol layer that reflects the sun's heat back into space. NASA calls it a volcanic winter. We could be looking at a drop of several degrees globally for years. The seasons are over. It's just going to be one long gray twilight until the atmosphere finally clears itself out. I just heard a report from the coast. The ports are closing. Ships can't navigate when they can't see past the bow, and their cooling systems are sucking in ash-laden seawater. The global supply chain just snapped. Everything we rely on, medicine, fuel, electronics, is sitting in hulls out at sea, unable to move. We are becoming islands. Every town is on its own now.
I have to remind myself that the probability of this happening was so low. The USGS estimated the annual chance at 0.00014%. We had a better chance of winning the lottery every day for a week. But statistics don't matter when the ceiling is falling in. We are the unlucky generation that hit the geological jackpot. The odds don't provide any warmth when the furnace goes out.
I'm thinking about the water. If you're near a river, don't drink from it. The ash turns into a slurry that will destroy your kidneys. If you have a well, keep the cap sealed tight. We have to be smart. We have to be careful with every drop. I have a gallon jug of water here on the desk, and I'm looking at it like it's liquid gold. Because it is. There's a strange light on the horizon. It's not the sun. It's too early. It's a dull, reddish glow reflecting off the ash clouds. It might be the fires. With the power grid failing and transformers blowing, the cities are starting to burn, and there's no way for the fire trucks to get through the ash. The world is ending in fire and ice all at once. I can hear someone knocking on the station door. I'm not supposed to let anyone in, official protocol, but it's freezing out there, and they're coughing. It's a woman with a small child. They're covered in gray. I'm going to open the door. If this is the end of the world, we might as well face it as humans, not as subjects of a protocol. Hold on a second. They're inside now. I gave them some masks and some water. The boy is staring at the equipment like it's from another planet. He asked me if the sun is ever coming back. I told him yes. I lied. I don't know when it will be back. But he's 6 years old. He needs to believe in the morning, even if the morning is 1,000 miles away. The National Park Service classifies this as a VEI 8 eruption. That's the highest level on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. It's the same category as the Toba eruption that nearly wiped out humanity 75,000 years ago. We are a resilient species. We've been through the bottleneck before. We just have to remember how our ancestors did it. They didn't have electricity. They had each other. I'm getting a report from the emergency broadcast relay. They're trying to set up clean zones in the south, where the ash is thinner. They're telling people to head toward the Gulf Coast, but the roads are parking lots. If you're in your house and you have supplies, stay there. Don't become a statistic on the shoulder of an interstate. The safest place is behind a sealed door. The fuel gauge on the generator is dipping into the red. I've got maybe 2 hours left before the voice of 107.1 goes silent. I'm going to use that time to keep telling the story, to keep the record. If you're out there and you have a pencil and paper, write down what you see. Don't let the history of this day be buried in the gray. We are the witnesses. I can hear the rhythm of the generator changing. It's a rhythmic, mechanical cough that echoes through the basement. I'm thinking about the pioneers who crossed these plains 2 centuries ago. They didn't have GPS or filtered air. They just had the grit to keep moving. We've forgotten what it's like to live at the mercy of the earth. But tonight, the earth is reminding us who is really in charge. The woman I let in, Sarah, says she was driving from Billings when the sky turned the color of a bruised plum. She saw the ash before she heard the sound. It started as a fine grit on the windshield. Then it became a deluge. The USGS warned that even a single millimeter of this dust can cause high-voltage flashovers and total electrical grid failure. That tiny layer of glass is what killed the lights. Sarah's son is asleep now, curled up on a pile of old soundproofing foam. He's lucky. He doesn't have to see the satellite maps I'm looking at on the backup monitor. The plume has already crossed the Missouri River. According to computer modeling from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems, this ash isn't staying local. It's projected to reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within just a few days of a full-scale eruption. If you are listening in a city, you need to understand the weight of what is falling. This isn't like snow, it's pulverized rock and volcanic glass. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln research notes that ashfall from a supereruption is heavy enough to collapse roofs across the Great Plains. If you have a flat roof, you need to find a way to clear it safely or get to a reinforced structure immediately. I just lost the feed from the Denver relay, just static now. It makes me think of the Lava Creek Tuff eruption about 640,000 years ago. That event ejected approximately 1,000 cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere. We are literally walking on the debris of that ancient violence every day in the park. Now, that history has decided to repeat itself, burying the present under the weight of the prehistoric. The air in here is getting heavy. I'm wearing a mask, but I can still taste the sulfur. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network reminds us that this stuff is toxic. It's abrasive. It's like breathing in tiny, jagged razor blades. If you don't have a professional mask, use a wet cloth. It's not perfect, but it might keep your lungs from scarring. Just breathe slow. Don't panic. I'm looking at a photo of Old Faithful I keep on the desk. It seems like a lifetime ago that people stood around with cameras waiting for the water to jump. The USGS Yellowstone Volcano Observatory monitors that ground deformation in real time, watching for the Earth to breathe. They saw the signs, the swarms of quakes, but nobody truly believed the big one was coming in our lifetime. We always think we have more time. There's a report coming in from a ham radio operator in Salt Lake City. He says the silence is the worst part. No birds, no planes, no distant hum of the freeway. Just the sound of the ash hitting the ground, like dry rain. It's clogging engines and water filters nationwide. If you have a car, don't try to drive it. The ash will melt inside your engine and turn it into a block of useless metal. We are looking at a volcanic winter now. NASA has proposed ways to settle down supervolcanoes in the past, but those were just theories on paper. The reality is that global temperatures could drop by several degrees for years to come. The growing seasons in the Midwest are gone. The breadbasket of the world is being paved over in gray. We are going to have to learn a new way to eat and a new way to live. I remember a scientist who called the show months ago. He talked about the three super eruptions at Yellowstone: 2.1 million, 1.3 million, and 640,000 years ago. He said the Earth has a heartbeat, but it's measured in eons. To the Earth, this eruption is just an exhale. The emergency lights are flickering. I've got a stack of letters from listeners here. People asking about their kids, their pets, their futures. I can't answer them. All I can do is stay here and keep the carrier wave alive. 107.1 FM, the last frequency. If you can hear this, you aren't alone. We are all sitting in the same dark, waiting for a dawn that feels a long way off. Sarah just woke up. She asked if I have a map. She wants to try to head south to the clean zones the government mentioned. I don't have the heart to tell her the roads are likely impassable by now. The ash turns to concrete when it hits moisture. If it rains, the tragedy only gets heavier. We are trapped in a landscape that is changing faster than we can run. I'm thinking about the power grid again. Even a millimeter of ash, that's all it takes. The USGS is very clear about the vulnerability of our infrastructure. We built a world out of glass and wires, and we forgot that the Earth is made of fire and stone. Now the wires are down, and the glass is breaking. We're going back to the age of the candle and the hearth. The boy is playing with a set of headphones. He doesn't understand that the music has stopped. I wonder what he'll remember of this. Will he remember the parks, the green grass, the blue skies? Or will his world always be this shade of slate? We owe it to the kids to keep the stories of the green world alive. Even if we never see it again, they need to know it existed. I've got a signal from a station in Nebraska. They're reporting that the weight of the ash has collapsed the local water treatment plant. Filters are useless against particles this fine. If you're listening, save your rainwater, but filter it through at least 3 layers of cloth and boil it if you can. It's not a guarantee, but it's a chance. And right now, a chance is all we have. The generator is starting to sputter. I can feel the vibration in the floorboards. It's like a dying heart. I'm going to keep talking until the last spark dies. I'm going to say the names of the people I've lost. My brother Mark, who was hiking near the Tetons. My sister Beth in Seattle. If you can hear this, I love you. I hope you found a safe place to hide. It's 4 a.m. The sun should be coming up soon, but the sensors say the light level isn't changing. The ash cloud is so thick, it's blocked out the dawn. This is the new reality, a world without a morning. But we can't let the darkness into our heads. We have to keep a light burning inside, even if it's just a small one. Especially if it's just a small one. Sarah is sharing her last granola bar with me. It's funny what you value when the world ends. It's not the money in the bank or the car in the garage. It's a piece of oats and honey and the company of a stranger. We are stripped down to the basics now. Kindness is a currency. Bravery is a necessity. We are all we have left. The USGS says the probability of another caldera-forming eruption is low, but low isn't zero. We lived in the shadow of a giant and forgot it was there. Now the giant has woken up, and we are just ants scurrying in the dust. But even ants survive. Even ants find a way to rebuild their hills. We will find a way to rebuild ours, one stone at a time. The lights just dimmed. The generator is on its last breath. I'm going to sign off soon. My name is Elias Thorne, and this has been 107.1 FM, the last frequency. If you're out there, stay warm, stay hydrated, and stay together. We've been through the dark before. We'll find the light again. This is Elias Thorne, signing off. Good night, and good luck. I'm looking at the latest data from the USGS Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. They've been tracking the seismic activity for years, watching the ground swell and the heat rise. It's strange to think that all that monitoring couldn't stop the inevitable. We knew the beast was there, resting beneath the hot springs and the pine forests. But knowing and feeling the ground shatter are two very different things. The reports coming in from the Great Plains are devastating. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln had warned about this. The ash is so heavy, it's literally crushing the roofs of homes and barns. It's not like snow, it doesn't melt. It's pulverized rock, and it just keeps piling up. I can hear the rafters of this station groaning under the weight. I hope the architecture holds, or this broadcast ends early. If you're trying to move, don't. The ash is like liquid sandpaper in an engine. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says these particles are jagged glass. They'll shred your air filters and seize your cylinders in minutes. I've seen 3 cars abandoned on the main road just outside the studio window. They look like great ghosts, stalled and silent in the middle of the street. NASA once proposed a plan to settle down supervolcanoes by drilling into them to release the heat. They thought we could turn the threat into geothermal energy. It sounded like science fiction then, and standing here in the dark, it feels like a dream from a different world. We spent billions on the stars and forgot to look at the fire beneath our feet. Now the fire has found us. The sky isn't just dark, it's a bruised purple. The USGS notes that the 640,000-year-old Lava Creek Tuff eruption ejected over 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. That's a number so big it doesn't mean anything until you see it blocking out the sun. Everything we ever built, every road and skyscraper, is being buried by the sky falling down. It's a literal mountain, redistributed across the continent. I just got a frantic call from a man named David in Cody, Wyoming. He said the ground deformation near the Caldera was visible to the naked eye before the big one hit. The YVO monitors that stuff in real time, but David saw the hills rise like the earth was taking a deep breath. He didn't finish his sentence before the line went dead. David, if you're out there, I'm keeping the light on for you. We are entering what the experts call a volcanic winter. NASA models suggest global temperatures could drop by several degrees for years. Think about that. No summer, no growing season. The breadbasket of the world is now a freezer. We're not just fighting the ash anymore, we're fighting the cold. If you have a wood stove, guard your fuel. It's more valuable than gold now. Computer models from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems predicted the ash would reach both coasts within days. They were right. I'm hearing reports from Boston and San Francisco. The Atlantic and the Pacific are both tasting the dust of Wyoming. It's a unified disaster. For the first time in history, the entire country is breathing the same air, and that air is poison. We are one nation under the ash. The power outages were the first domino to fall. The USGS warned that even a tiny bit of ash causes high-voltage flashovers. I remember the transformer down the street exploding, a blue flash that turned the midnight ash into a neon nightmare. Without power, the pumps stop. Without pumps, the water stops. We're back to the basics of survival, and the basics are getting harder to find. Health officials are pleading with everyone to stay indoors. This ash is toxic. It's not like wood smoke, it's mineral dust that scars the lungs. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says it's highly abrasive. If you have to go out, use a damp cloth, a mask, anything. Every breath you take without protection is like swallowing tiny razor blades. Don't let the silence fool you. The air is the enemy. I'm looking at an old map of the Yellowstone Plateau. 3 super eruptions in 2 million years, 2.1 million, 1.3 million, and 640,000 years ago. We thought we had more time. The annual probability was only 0.00014%. We bet the future of our civilization on a fraction of a percent. and we lost. The house always wins, and in this case, the house is the Earth itself. There's a strange sound outside. It's not the wind. It's the sound of the ash falling, a soft, relentless hiss. It sounds like static. Maybe that's why I feel so at home here in the booth. The world has turned into one big radio frequency, nothing but white noise and shadows. I'm trying to find a voice in the static, anyone else still broadcasting, but the dial just keeps spinning. I remember a scientist from the YVO who visited the station last year. He spoke about ground deformation like it was a fascinating puzzle. He said the Caldera floor moved up and down like a lung. I wonder where he is now. Did he see the data coming? Did he have enough time to call his family? Or did he just watch the needles go off the charts and know it was over? The grocery stores were emptied in 3 hours. It's the disaster dominoes effect. Once the trucks couldn't drive through the ash, the food supply just evaporated. If you have a garden, try to cover what's left. The ash will turn the soil acidic, but maybe some of it can be saved. We need to think about next month, even if we're not sure we'll make it to next week. I've got a backup generator running on diesel, but the tank is half empty. I'm rationing the power, turning off the studio lights and just leaving the transmitter on. It's lonely in here. The shadows are long, and they seem to move when I'm not looking. I keep thinking I hear someone at the door, but it's just the ash shifting against the metal siding. Just the world being buried. Is anyone in Denver listening? The reports say the mile-high city is under 2 feet of grit. The airport is a graveyard of planes that will never fly again. If you're in a high-rise, stay away from the windows. The weight on the roofs of those big buildings is immense. We weren't built for this. We were built for sunshine and light breezes, not for the weight of the underworld. The USGS says the Lava Creek Tuff eruption was a VEI 8. That's the highest it goes. It means more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock turned into dust. To put that in perspective, imagine the entire state of Rhode Island covered in a layer of ash half a mile thick. That's what's currently floating over our heads. That's what we're breathing. It's hard to wrap the mind around that kind of scale. I'm thinking about the animals. The bison and elk in the park, they were the first to go. They had no masks, no basements. I saw a video before the internet went down of a herd just standing there, letting the ash cover them like statues. It haunts me. We think we're so different from them because we have radios and engines. But when the earth opens up, we're all just flesh and bone. The silence is the worst part. No planes, no cars, no birds, just the hum of this transmitter and my own breathing. It's like the world has been put in a sensory deprivation tank. I find myself talking just to hear a human voice, even if it's just my own. If you can hear me, make some noise. Bang on a pot, shout into the street. Remind the world you're still here. I'm going to try and catch a few hours of sleep while the generator hums. I've set an alarm for 6 a.m., not that the sun will be up to greet me. If you're listening, try to rest. Fear burns more calories than you think, and we need to save every bit of energy we have. I'll be back on the air as long as the fuel holds. This is Elias Thorne, keeping the frequency alive. Sarah, if you're out there near Bozeman, if you made it to the shelter, I need you to know I'm still at the desk. The sky here is the color of a bruised lung. I'm looking at the 107.1 FM signal meter, and it's steady, but the world outside is anything but. It's 4:12 a.m., and the thermometer of the studio window says it has dropped 20 degrees since midnight. The air smells like burnt matches and wet concrete. The USGS warned us about the Lava Creek Tuff event from 640,000 years ago. They told us that eruption ejected 1,000 cubic kilometers of debris. We treated it like ancient history, a footnote in a park brochure. But as I look at the satellite feed flickering on my monitor, I see that history has decided to repeat itself. That much material doesn't just fall. It swallows the sun and chokes the very life out of the atmosphere. I just got a patch through from a guy named Marcus in Omaha. He said the weight of the ash is collapsing the roofs of the pole barns out there. He's right to be worried. The University of Nebraska warned that even a few inches of this stuff, when it gets damp, is like pouring wet lead on your house. If you're listening in the plains, you need to clear your roof, but for God's sake, wear a mask. The glass shards in the air will shred your lungs. The power grid is the next domino to fall. I'm running on a diesel generator that's coughing every few minutes. The USGS Volcanic Hazards program wasn't joking when they said a single millimeter of ash can cause high-voltage flashovers. All it takes is a little moisture, and the insulators on the power lines turn into conductors. The sparks I'm seeing on the horizon look like blue lightning, but it's just the grid dying a slow, flickering death. I remember a scientist from the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, the YVO, who came on the show last year. He talked about ground deformation, how the Caldera floor would rise and fall like it was breathing. We laughed about it then, calling it the beating heart of the park. It wasn't a heart, it was a pressure cooker. The real-time monitoring they did back then showed the ground rising inches every year. A slow-motion warning we all just lived with. If you're trying to drive, stop. I don't care how fast you think your truck is. The ash is highly abrasive rock and natural glass. It doesn't just sit on the road. It gets sucked into your air intake and turns into a physical plug. Your engine will seize in miles, leaving you stranded in a gray wasteland. I've seen 3 cars abandoned on the bridge outside the studio already. They look like ghosts huddled in the dark. NASA once proposed a plan to settle these supervolcanoes down by drilling into them to release the heat. They feared the volcanic winter that would follow a major eruption. Looking out my window, I can tell you the winter has arrived early. The global temperature is expected to drop by several degrees for years to come. This isn't just a bad week, it's a change in how the entire planet functions. The breadbasket of America is effectively gone. I'm looking at a photo of my brother, David. He's in Seattle. The computer models from the geochemistry journals said the ash would reach both coasts within days. If you're in Seattle, David, I hope you stayed inside. The Pacific winds might have pushed the plume east, but the sheer volume of material means nowhere is truly safe. The sky over the sound must be pitch black by now. I'm saying his name, so he stays real to me. Water is the new gold. Don't turn on your taps if you can help it. The ash clogs the filters at the treatment plants, and what does get through is toxic. It's full of minerals that'll make you sick. If you have a rain barrel, keep it covered. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says this stuff is basically crushed rock. You wouldn't drink liquid sandpaper, so don't drink the tap water until we know more. Use the bottled stuff sparingly. The probability of this happening was supposed to be 0.0001% annually. That's what the USGS told us to keep us calm. Exceedingly low, they said. But when you're the one sitting in the 0.00%, statistics don't mean a damn thing. It's like winning the worst lottery in the history of the human race. We spent so much time worrying about the when that we completely ignored the what if. Now the what if is screaming outside my door. I've got a caller on the line. Jim from Casper, you there? Jim says the National Guard has set up a checkpoint, but they can't see 5 feet in front of their Humvees. The headlights are just bouncing off the ash like a wall of white noise. He sounds scared. I told him to stay in his cellar. When order collapses, it happens in stages. First the lights, then the phones, then the feeling that anyone is coming to save you. The 2.1-million-year-old eruption was even bigger than this one. The Earth has a memory of this violence, even if we don't. We built cities on top of a sleeping giant and acted surprised when it finally rolled over. I can hear the building groaning under the weight on the roof. I might have to go up there and sweep, even if it kills me. If the roof goes, the transmitter goes. And if that happens, I'm just a man talking to a wall. There's a strange irony in all this. We had all these high-tech systems, fiber optics, 5G, satellite arrays. They're all useless now. The static in the atmosphere from the volcanic lightning has fried the delicate stuff. I'm only on the air because of this old vacuum tube transmitter and a copper wire. The analog world is the only thing left standing. If you have an old hand crank radio, keep cranking. It's your only tether to the rest of us. I'm looking at a map of the breadbasket. Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa. The places that feed the world are currently being paved over by gray death. The USGS says the ashfall would be thick enough to destroy crops across the entire Great Plains. We aren't just looking at a local disaster. We're looking at a global famine. The dominoes are falling, and they're hitting every dinner table on the planet. I hope you have some canned goods tucked away. It's 5:30 a.m. now. The generator is sputtering. I might have to switch to the car battery soon. I'm thinking about the people in the park when it happened. The tourists and Old Faithful. They probably thought the ground shaking was just part of the show. For a few seconds, it must have been beautiful. The raw power of the earth. And then, the sky fell. I hope it was quick for them. I really do. I once read that the ash is so fine it can get into sealed electronics and short them out. My laptop is already making a whining sound it shouldn't be. I'm covering the vents with a damp cloth, hoping to buy a few more hours of data. It's a losing battle. The volcano is reclaiming everything we built. It's turning our silicon and steel back into dust. We're being erased, 1 millimeter at a time. To whoever is listening in Salt Lake City, the reports say the lake is turning into a slurry. The ash reacts with the water and creates something like liquid cement. If you're near the water, get to higher ground. The weight of that sludge can take out bridges and dams. We're seeing the geography of the West rewritten in real time. The mountains I used to see from this window are gone, hidden behind a curtain of gray. I'm drinking my last cup of coffee. It's cold and it tastes like grit. I keep thinking about a woman I met at a diner in Cody. She had a tattoo of a sunflower on her wrist. I wonder if she's still there, or if she tried to run. The roads out of Cody were the first to be buried. I'm saying her name, Maria, just in case someone out there knows her. Just in case she's listening to 107.1. The USGS monitoring stations in the park went dark almost instantly. The YVO lost their eyes and ears on the ground within seconds of the first blast. We're flying blind now. All we have are the reports from people like you, calling in from their basements and shelters. You are the sensors now. You are the ones telling the story of how the world changed. Keep calling. Keep the information flowing. The sun should be up by now. It's 7 a.m., but it's darker than midnight. The volcanic winter isn't a future threat. It's the reality of this morning. NASA's predictions about a drop in global temperature are starting to feel very real as I shiver in this studio. If you have a wood stove, get it going. If you have blankets, use them all. The heat is leaving the world, and we have to huddle together to keep the spark alive. Sarah, if you're out there, I'm still here. I'm at the 107.1 transmitter site on the ridge. The sky is a color I don't have a name for. A bruised purple mixed with a heavy, suffocating charcoal. It's 9:15 a.m. and the streetlights in town just flickered and died. The backup generator is the only thing humming in the silence. I can smell the sulfur through the vents. It's like the earth itself is rotting. They called this a VEI 8 event. That's the highest level on the volcanic explosivity index. It means more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and gas were just thrown into the sky. To put that in perspective, imagine a mountain range being ground into powder and tossed into the wind. The Lava Creek Tuff eruption did this 640,000 years ago, and we always thought of it as ancient history. Now, it's our morning news. I just got a patch through from a guy named Miller in Omaha. He says the weight of the ash is starting to collapse the roof of the grocery store where people were hunkered down. The University of Nebraska warned us about this. Ash isn't like snow. It doesn't melt. It's heavy, abrasive, and when it gets wet, it's like lead. If you're under a wide-span roof, get out now. Move to a smaller room with more support. The power grid is failing in stages. I'm looking at the reports from the Pacific Northwest. Even a single millimeter of this dust can cause high-voltage flashovers on the lines. The insulators just can't handle the conductivity of the volcanic glass. One by one, the transformers are popping like flashbulbs across the horizon. We are sliding back into a pre-electric age, and the darkness is spreading faster than the ash. I'm thinking about the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. Those scientists spent decades watching the ground swell and the tremors ripple. They saw the three major super-eruptions in the timeline, 2.1 million, 1.3 million, and 640,000 years ago. They knew the math. The annual probability was low, just 0.00014%. But statistics don't matter when you're the one standing in the path of the statistical outlier. The clock finally hit zero. If you're driving, pull over. Stop the engine immediately. The air filters on your car are being choked by glass shards. Volcanic ash is highly abrasive. It'll chew through your cylinders in minutes. I've seen 3 cars abandoned on the road below the studio already, their engines seized and smoking. If you stay in your car, keep the windows up and the vents closed. You're better off walking if you have a respirator. NASA once proposed a plan to drill into the magma chamber to cool it down, a way to settle the giant before it woke up. They said it could prevent a volcanic winter that would lower global temperatures for years. It sounded like science fiction back then. Looking out at this frozen, gray landscape, I wish we had listened. We spent our money on everything else, and we left the most dangerous spark on Earth untended. I have a call from Denver. It's a woman named Clara. She says she can't breathe, even inside her house. Clara, listen to me. Take a piece of clothing, get it wet, and wrap it around your face. The ash is made of tiny, jagged particles of rock and glass. It's toxic. It'll tear up your lungs if you breathe it raw. Stay in the center of the house. Don't go outside to check the sky. There's nothing to see but the end. The computer models from the geochemistry and geophysics journals were right. The ash plume is already reaching the Atlantic coast. It's moving at speeds we didn't think were possible, carried by the jet stream. New York, D.C., Philly, they're all reporting the first flakes of gray. The entire continent is being shrouded in a single massive funeral shroud. There is no away to run to. We are all under the same sky now. I'm looking at a photo on my desk. It's from a trip I took to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone years ago. I remember the yellow stone that gave the park its name. That stone was created by these same forces hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's beautiful and terrifying to think that we are witnessing the birth of a new landscape, even as our own world is buried beneath it. The Earth is just resetting. The water filters at the municipal plants are failing. The ash is so fine it gets past the standard screens and clogs the membranes. If you have a pool or a rain barrel, it's useless now. You need to boil whatever you have, but even then, the minerals in the ash might be toxic. We're going to be thirsty soon. I'm looking at my last gallon of bottled water like it's liquid gold. Ration what you have. We're hearing reports of volcanic lightning. The friction between the ash particles in the air creates massive amounts of static electricity. It's not like regular lightning. It's constant, a flickering strobe light in the dark. It's beautiful in a way that makes you want to scream. It's the sound of the atmosphere tearing itself apart. I can hear it popping on the radio frequency, a rhythmic clicking that won't go away. I'm thinking about the farmers in the Midwest. They're the ones who really take the hit. The USGS said the ash would destroy the breadbasket, and right now, millions of acres of corn and wheat are being smothered. This isn't just about today's hunger, it's about next year's. The supply chains were already fragile. Now the roads are gone, the trucks are seized, and the fields are gray. We're going to have to learn how to grow things in the dark. My friend David was a ranger at the park. He used to tell me that Yellowstone was a living thing, that it breathed. He'd point to the ground deformation, the way the Caldera floor would rise and fall by inches every year. We used to joke that the giant was just tossing and turning in its sleep. I guess it finally woke up and decided it didn't like the neighbors. I haven't heard from David since the first tremor. The silence is the worst part. Usually I can hear the highway from here, the distant hum of long haulers moving freight. Now there's nothing. Dry rain. It's the sound of a world being muted. If you're feeling lonely in that silence, just know I'm still here. I'm still talking. You aren't alone. I'm checking the battery levels on the backup array. We've got maybe 4 hours left if I turn off the studio lights. I'm broadcasting in the dark now, just the glow of the transmitter tubes to keep me company. It's strange how little you need when everything is taken away. A bit of power, a bit of air, and the hope that someone is on the other end of the line. That's all that matters now. To the people in the shelters, stay patient. I know it's cramped and the air is stale, but it's the only safe place. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says the long-term effects of inhaling this stuff are devastating. Silicosis isn't a joke. Keep your masks on, even when you're sleeping. We have to be smart if we want to see the sun again. And we will see it. It's just going to take a long time. I just saw a flash on the horizon toward the south. It might have been a transformer, or maybe something else. The government has gone quiet. The emergency alert system has been playing the same recorded loop for 3 hours. It's up to us now. Local communities, neighbors, strangers on the radio. We are the new infrastructure. If you have a neighbor who lives alone, knock on their door. Check on them. The temperature is dropping fast. It was 60 degrees yesterday. It's 35 now and falling. This is the volcanic winter NASA warned us about. The ash in the stratosphere is reflecting the sunlight back into space. We're looking at a summer that might never come. Find your winter coats. Find your boots. We're going to have to survive a season that doesn't have an end date on the calendar. I'm going to take a short break to swap the batteries. If the signal cuts out, don't panic. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Keep your dials set to 107.1. We're the last frequency in the valley, and I'm not giving up yet. My name is Elias Thorne, and I'm still here. If you can hear me, you're still here too. That's a victory. Hold on to it. I'm looking at the latest data from the USGS Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. They've been tracking this beast for decades, monitoring every seismic hiccup and groundswell. The observatory uses a dense network of GPS stations and seismographs to watch for the exact moment the magma chamber decides to breach the surface. They warned us that a VEI-8 eruption would eject over 1,000 cubic kilometers of debris. That's a number so large it's hard to wrap your head around. Let's talk about the ash. It isn't like the soft soot you get from a fireplace. According to the International Volcanic Health Hazard Network, this stuff is made of jagged particles of rock and natural glass. It's abrasive. It's toxic. When you breathe it in, it doesn't just sit in your lungs. It tears at the tissue. If you aren't wearing a high-grade mask, you're basically inhaling ground-up shards of a broken bottle. Please, stay inside. I remember reading a NASA proposal about how we might have stopped this. They actually suggested a way to settle down supervolcanoes by drilling into the periphery and pumping in high-pressure water to cool the magma. It was a multi-billion-dollar idea that would have taken centuries to complete. We thought we had time. We thought the 0.00014% annual probability meant it was someone else's problem, centuries away. We were wrong. The power grid is failing in stages now. The USGS Volcanic Hazards Program warned that even a single millimeter of ash can cause high-voltage flashovers. The ash is conductive when it gets damp, and it's shorting out the insulators on the big transmission lines. I can see the sparks from the station window, huge blue arcs of electricity dancing across the transformers before they go dark. The whole country is blinking out, city by city. We have to look back to the Lava Creek Tuff eruption to understand the scale of what we're living through. That happened 640,000 years ago, and it literally reshaped the continent. The National Park Service says that event ejected approximately 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. It left a hole in the ground the size of a small state. That's the legacy we're inheriting today, a geological scar that has reopened with a vengeance. Computer modeling from the journal Geochemistry, Geophysics, Geosystems suggested that ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. I just got a report from a ham radio operator in Charleston. He says the sky there is the color of a bruise, and the ash is starting to settle on the docks. From sea to shining sea, the map is being erased by a blanket of gray. There is nowhere left to run. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln has done studies on what this does to buildings. The weight of the ash, especially if it gets wet, is enough to collapse roofs across the Great Plains. It's not like snow, it doesn't melt, it just gets heavier. I'm hearing reports of barns in Iowa giving way, trapping livestock and families underneath. If you're in a structure with a flat roof, you need to find a way to clear it or get out. It's not just the buildings. That same ash is clogging every engine and water filter in its path. The fine particles get sucked into air intakes and turn into a slurry that seizes pistons. Emergency vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, they're all stalled on the side of the road. The very machines we built to save us are being choked to death by the earth itself. We're being forced back into a world of muscle and bone. The sky hasn't been blue for 72 hours. NASA's research into volcanic winters says we could see global temperatures drop by several degrees for years to come. This isn't a temporary storm. It's a shift in the planet's thermostat. The ash in the upper atmosphere is reflecting the sun's energy back into the void. I'm looking at my thermometer, and it's already 10 degrees colder than it should be for this time of year. I'm thinking about the 3 super eruptions that happened before us. The USGS records them at 2.1 million, 1.3 million, and 640,000 years ago. Each one was a reset button for life on this continent. We used to look at those dates and feel safe in the vastness of time. But time is a circle, and we just happen to be standing where the line meets itself. We are living through a chapter of history that won't be read for 1,000,000 years. The water supply is the next domino to fall. Open reservoirs are being contaminated by the fallout, turning life-giving water into a toxic soup of chemicals and grit. If you don't have a closed well, you need to be boiling every drop, though even that won't take out the minerals. I've got 3 gallons of bottled water left here at the station. I'm sipping it like it's liquid gold. Don't waste a drop. I just lost contact with our sister station in Denver. Their last broadcast was a guy named Mark, just like me, trying to keep his voice steady while the windows rattled from the pressure waves. He said the ash was so thick he couldn't see the streetlights from the second floor. Then the carrier wave just snapped. I'm hoping he just lost his antenna. I'm hoping he's just sitting in the dark, waiting for the light. They call it the breadbasket for a reason. But the University of Nebraska-Lincoln warns that the ashfall would be thick enough to smother the Great Plains entirely. All that corn, all that wheat, it's gone. This isn't just a local disaster, it's a global food crisis in the making. The calories that feed the world are being buried under 6 inches of gray glass. We're going to have to find a new way to eat. The USGS says the probability of this happening was exceedingly low, about 0.00014% annually. Those are the kind of odds you'd bet your life on. And we did. We built cities, power plants, and lives right on top of a ticking clock. Now that the clock has struck 12, those statistics don't mean much. The only number that matters now is how many days of food you have left in your pantry. I can hear the sound of the generator chugging outside. It's a rhythmic thumping that's becoming the heartbeat of my world. But I can hear it struggling. The air filter is probably getting choked with the fine dust. I'm going to have to go out there soon with a rag and try to clean it. It's a death sentence for my lungs. But if that generator dies, this frequency goes silent. I'm not ready for silence. The National Park Service defines a VEI 8 eruption as an event that ejects more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. To put that in perspective, imagine a mountain range being ground into powder and thrown into the sky. It's enough to cover the entire United States in a layer of dust. We are walking on the remains of the mountains now. The world has been inverted. The ground is in the sky, and the sky is on the ground. The local police chief called in 10 minutes ago. He said they're stopping all non-essential travel. The roads are too slick with ash, and the visibility is 0. If you're in your car, pull over. Stay there. Turning on your heater will only suck the ash into your cabin and kill your engine faster. Roll up the windows, wrap yourself in a blanket, and wait. We have to wait for the world to stop falling. The USGS Yellowstone Volcano Observatory is still trying to send out data packets via satellite, but the interference is massive. They're seeing continued seismic activity, which means the caldera hasn't settled yet. There could be secondary blasts, more vents opening up. This isn't a single explosion, it's a geological collapse. The Earth is folding in on itself, and we're just the dust motes caught in the middle. I'm looking at a photo of my family I keep on the desk. My daughter is 5. She's supposed to start kindergarten next month. I wonder if there will be a school for her to go to. I wonder if she'll remember what the sun looked like before it turned into this dim orange ghost. I'm staying on the air for her, so that when she wakes up, she knows her dad is still fighting for a world she can live in. We're going to get through this. Humans are like weeds. We find a way to grow in the cracks of the sidewalk. We've survived ice ages and plagues and wars. This is just the latest test. Keep your radios on, keep your spirits up. My name is Elias Thorne, and this is the last frequency. I'll be here as long as the fuel holds out. You aren't alone in the dark. Good night for now, and stay safe. Sarah, I hope you're still listening. I remember you saying you wanted to see the geysers one day. Now, the National Park Service reports that the 640,000-year-old Lava Creek Tuff eruption ejected 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. That's the history we're living through now. It's not a postcard anymore. It's a tomb. The beauty of the park was always just a thin veil over this much power. I had just got a message from a ham operator in Denver. He says the weight of the ash is starting to win. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln warned that ashfall would be thick enough to collapse roofs across the Great Plains. People are out there in the dark with shovels, trying to save their homes, but the ash is heavy as wet concrete. Every scoop just feels like a drop in the ocean. The air in here is getting heavy. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says this stuff is made of tiny, jagged particles of rock in natural glass. It's abrasive. It's toxic. Every breath I take feels like I'm swallowing sandpaper. If you're listening, please use a damp cloth, anything to filter the air. Your lungs aren't built for a world made of glass shards. It's not just the dark, it's the cold that's coming. NASA researchers have proposed that a major eruption like this would produce a volcanic winter. We're looking at global temperatures dropping by several degrees for years. The sun is up there somewhere, but its heat can't pierce this shroud. We've traded the summer for a long, gray autumn that might never end. I'm thinking about Miller. He was a tech at the substation down the road. He stayed on the line until the very end. The USGS warns that even a millimeter of ash can cause high-voltage flashovers. Miller was trying to clear the insulators when the grid finally gave up. The sparks must have looked like lightning in all that dust. He didn't make it back. He was just trying to keep the lights on for us. Computer modeling from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems suggested this ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. It's a total continental blackout. From New York to LA, the same gray blanket is falling. There is no away to run to. We are all under the same sky now, waiting for the wind to change. But the models say the wind is only carrying the poison further. The silence on the emergency bands is the hardest part. The USGS uses the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory to monitor everything in real time, seismic activity, ground deformation, but the sensors are going dark one by one. It's like watching a nervous system shut down. We're losing our eyes on the ground just when we need them most. We're flying blind into the collapse. I found an old paper map in the glove box of the station truck. It feels like a relic from a different civilization. GPS is gone, the satellites are struggling, and the roads are invisible. The USGS records show 3 of these super eruptions in the last 2 million years. Our entire modern world is just a tiny blip on that timeline. The Earth is just reclaiming its space, and we're the ones out of time. My fuel gauge for the generator is dipping into the red. I've been rationing it, turning off the studio lights, sitting here in the glow of the monitor. It's funny what you miss. I'd give anything for a glass of water that didn't taste like sulfur. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln said the ash would clog water filters nationwide. They weren't kidding. Every sip is a reminder that the world has turned bitter. I remember a caller from a few nights back, a farmer named Elias. He said he was going to stay with his livestock until the end. I haven't heard from him since the second wave of ash hit the Midwest. The breadbasket is becoming a dust bowl again, but worse. This isn't just dirt. It's pulverized rock. It doesn't support life. It smothers it. I hope you found a shelter, Elias. The USGS says the 2.1 million-year-old eruption was the biggest of them all. We thought we were special, living in the age of technology. But the Earth doesn't care about our fiber optics. It doesn't care about our stock markets. When 1,000 cubic kilometers of the crust decides to move, it moves. We are just guests here, and it feels like our reservation has been canceled. If you can hear me, stay inside. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network isn't joking about the respiratory risks. The ash is so light, it stays airborne for weeks. Every time you move, you kick up a fresh cloud of glass. Seal your windows with duct tape. Put wet towels under the doors. Turn your home into a fortress against the air itself. It's the only way to keep your heart beating. I'm looking out the window at 107.1 FM. The streetlights are still flickering, trying to fight the dark, but they're losing. The ash is so thick now, it's muffled all the sound. No sirens, no engines, no birds. Just the low hum of the planet dying. Or maybe it's just being reborn into something we don't recognize. Either way, the silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard. NASA's proposal to cool down the volcano by drilling into it seems like a dream now. We had the plans, but we didn't have the time. We spent our energy on everything else, while the giant beneath our feet was waking up. Now we're left with the volcanic winter they warned us about. A few degrees doesn't sound like much until the frost starts in July and the corn never grows. I've got a letter here from a listener in Omaha. She wrote it before the mail stopped moving. She said she was scared of the dark. I want to tell her that the dark is just the absence of light, but this is different. This is the presence of something else, something ancient. But we're still here. If you can read this by candlelight, you're still in the fight. Don't let the gray win. The USGS Yellowstone Volcano Observatory noted that 3 super eruptions happened at intervals of roughly 600,000 to 800,000 years. We were right in the window. We called it overdue in the news headlines, like it was a library book. We didn't realize that when the bill came due, we'd be paying with everything we owned. The Earth has a long memory, and it's finally speaking up. The grid failure is total now. The USGS Volcanic Hazards Program was right. Even a tiny amount of ash killed the power. Without the fans, the heat in these buildings is rising. Without the pumps, the water is gone. We've been stripped back to the 1800s in a matter of days. The only thing we have that they didn't is this radio. And I'm going to keep it talking until the last drop of gas. I heard a rumor on the shortwave that some people are heading south, trying to outrun the ash plume, but the models from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems show it's everywhere. There is no south far enough. The ash is in the jet stream. It's circling the globe. We have to stop running and start digging in. This is our home. Even if it's covered in gray, we have to make it work. The National Park Service reminds us that Yellowstone is a living, breathing system. We forgot that. We treated it like a theme park, a place for selfies and souvenirs. But the 1,000 cubic kilometers of material it just spat out is a reminder of who really runs this planet. We're just tenants, and the landlord just decided to renovate the whole building while we were still inside. I'm going to take a short break to check the filters. If the signal flickers, don't move the dial. I'll be back. We've been here before, in the long shadow of history. We find a way. We always find a way. Keep your lanterns lit and your heart steady. This is Elias Thorne on 107.1 FM, the last frequency. I'm still here. I hope you are too. I'm looking at the latest data from the USGS Volcanic Hazards Program. They warned us that even a single millimeter of ash could cause high-voltage flashovers. Now, looking out the window at the dead power lines, I see what they meant. The grid didn't just fail, it melted under the weight of glass and stone. Every transformer in the county is a blackened shell, and the silence of the wires is terrifying. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network isn't pulling any punches. This ash isn't soft like wood smoke. It's jagged particles of rock and natural glass. It's abrasive. It's toxic. Every breath we take without a mask is like inhaling thousands of tiny razor blades. I've started wearing 2 shirts over my face just to move across the studio. My lungs feel like they're filled with wet cement. I remember reading that the Lava Creek Tuff eruption some 640,000 years ago ejected about 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. That's a number so big it doesn't even feel real. It's enough to bury the entire country. We used to look at those ancient rock layers in the national park and think of them as history. We never thought we'd be the ones buried in the next layer for future explorers to find. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln put out a study saying ashfall would be thick enough to collapse roofs across the Great Plains. I just got a report from a ham radio operator in Lincoln. He says the sound of the roofs giving way is like a slow-motion car crash. The weight of the ash, especially when it rains, is more than any timber frame was built to hold. The breadbasket of the world is literally being crushed. Computer modeling from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems was chillingly accurate. They predicted the ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. I've heard from a fisherman in Maine who says the ocean looks like a parking lot. The ash floats on the surface, forming a great crust that chokes the engines. There is no escaping to the sea. The water is as dead as the land. The USGS reminds us that there were 3 of these super eruptions. One 2.1 million years ago, 1.3 million years ago, and the last one 640,000 years ago. We are living through the 4th. It's a cycle that doesn't care about our borders, our politics, or our schedules. The Earth is just breathing out. The problem is, we're the ones standing in the way of the exhale. NASA once proposed a way to settle down supervolcanoes by drilling and pumping in water to cool the magma. It was a billion-dollar insurance policy we never paid for. Now, that heat is being released all at once. The energy coming out of the ground right now is more than every nuclear weapon ever built. We're watching the raw power of the planet, and it's humbling in the worst way possible. The ash is clogging every water filter in the country. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln warned us about this too. You can't just boil it away. The grit gets into the pumps, it grinds down the seals, and then the water stops flowing. I'm down to my last 3 cases of bottled water. I've started collecting the morning dew on a tarp, but even that tastes like sulfur and stone. I think about the scientists at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. They spent their lives watching the ground deform and the earthquake swarm. They saw the signs. But how do you tell 100 million people to leave? Where do they go? The USGS monitored the seismic activity in real time, but nature moves faster than any evacuation plan. By the time the alarms really screamed, the roads were already gone. The volcanic winter is beginning to settle in. NASA's research suggests global temperatures could drop by several degrees for years. It's not just a cold snap, it's the death of 1,000 harvests. On looking at a photo a friend sent from Florida, there's a thin layer of gray on the palm trees. When the sun can't hit the leaves, the life just drains out of the world. The USGS says the probability of this happening was exceedingly low, about 0.00014% annually. We lived our lives on those odds. We built cities on those odds. But the thing about a 1 in a million chance is that it eventually happens. And when it does, the statistics don't matter anymore. All that matters is who has a shovel and who has a mask. I've got a caller on the line from Denver. His name is Marcus. He says the ash is 4 feet deep on his street. He can't get his door open. Marcus, if you're still listening, try the window on the 2nd floor. Don't push too hard. The glass is brittle in this cold. We're trying to get a message to the National Guard, but the radios are all static. The 640,000-year-old eruption wasn't even the biggest one. The first one, 2.1 million years ago, was even more massive. We are sitting on a powder keg that has been refilling for millennia. Every geyser at Yellowstone, every bubbling mud pot, was a warning sign we treated like a tourist attraction. We were walking on the roof of a furnace, and we finally fell through. I'm looking at the fuel gauge on the generator. It's lower than I'd like. I've been siphoning gas from the cars in the lot, but the ash gets into everything. It ruins the engines. It's like sandpaper in the cylinders. If this broadcast cuts out, it's because the machine finally gave up. I'll be here in the dark, still talking, even if nobody can hear me. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network warns about the long-term effects of this dust. Silicosis, respiratory failure. We weren't built to breathe the Earth's guts. Even inside, the dust finds a way. It's under the door. It's in the vents. It's a constant, gritty reminder that the world we knew is buried under 1 billion tons of glass. I remember a scientist from the USGS saying Yellowstone isn't overdue because volcanoes don't work on a schedule, they work on pressure, and the pressure finally found a weak spot. It wasn't a clock ticking, it was a balloon stretching. We just happened to be the ones standing there when it finally popped. Now we're just trying to survive the blast wave. The silence on the 107.1 FM frequency is getting longer between my words. I think the ash is dampening the signal. Or maybe is just fewer people left to listen. If you're out there, make some noise. Bang on a pipe. Shine a light. Remind yourself that you're still a part of the world, even if the world is currently trying to forget you. The National Park Service says the Yellowstone Plateau is one of the most monitored volcanic fields in the world. We had all the data. We had the best sensors money could buy. But all the data in the world can't stop a mountain from moving. It only gives you a front row seat to the end. And right now, the show is in full swing. The USGS Volcanic Hazards Program mentioned that ash can travel thousands of miles. It's not just a local problem, it's a global blackout. The planes are grounded because the ash melts in the turbines and turns to glass. The world has become very small. We're back to the speed of a human foot. We're back to knowing only what our neighbors can tell us. I'm gonna keep this frequency open as long as there's a spark left in the batteries. We've survived ice ages and plagues. We've survived wars and famine. We can survive the gray. It's just rock. It's just ash. We are the ones who give this planet a voice, and I'm not done speaking yet. Stay tuned. Stay alive. This is 107.1 FM. I'm looking at a map of the Great Plains, or what's left of it. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln warned that ashfall would be thick enough to collapse roofs across the entire heartland. Imagine that. The very soil that feeds the world is now a weight that crushes the homes of the people who tend it. The breadbasket of America has become a graveyard of timber and shingles. The USGS says the Lava Creek Tuff eruption, about 640,000 years ago, ejected 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. It's hard to wrap your head around a number that big. Picture a mountain range being turned into dust and thrown into the sky in a single afternoon. That's what we're living through now, the ghosts of ancient mountains falling on our doorsteps. I just got word from a listener on a hand crank radio in Denver. They say the water filters are failing. The ash is so fine it gets past the mesh and clogs the intake pipes. This is what the researchers warned about. You can't just boil this water to fix it. It's like trying to drink liquid sandpaper. Without clean water, the clock starts ticking even faster for everyone out there. NASA actually proposed a way to settle down supervolcanoes years ago. They thought about drilling into the rock to cool the magma chamber. It sounded like science fiction then, and it feels like a cruel joke now. We spent trillions on everything else, but pennies on the one thing that could actually reset the planet's thermostat. We were too busy looking at our screens to notice the ground heating up. The power grid is the first thing to go. The USGS Volcanic Hazards Program explains why. Even a tiny layer of ash, just a millimeter, can cause high voltage flashovers. It shorts out the transformers. One spark, one pop, and an entire city goes dark. It's not a slow fade, it's a sudden, violent snap. And once the grid is down, the silence really begins to settle in. I'm thinking about the animals. The National Park Service says Yellowstone is home to the largest concentration of mammals in the lower 48. The bison, the elk, the wolves, they didn't have a broadcast to warn them. They're just standing there in the fields, their lungs filling with glass. It's a quiet tragedy happening in the dark, miles away from any human eyes. The computer models from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems weren't lying. They predicted the ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. Nowhere is safe. If you thought the coast would be a refuge, you're looking at the same gray tide we are. The wind doesn't care about state lines or mountain ranges. It carries the end of the world to everyone. Eventually.
They call it a volcanic winter. NASA says global temperatures could drop by several degrees for years. That means no growing season, no harvests, just a long, cold twilight. We've been worried about the world getting too hot, but the volcano just flipped the script. Now we're looking at a future where the sun is just a pale coin in a dirty sky.
I remember reading that the probability of this happening was only 0.00014% annually. That's a 1 in 700,000 chance. We all lived our lives thinking we'd won the lottery of stability. But probability doesn't mean impossibility. It just means the longer you go without a disaster, the closer you get to the one that finally breaks the streak. Our luck just ran out. The ash is highly abrasive. It's made of tiny, jagged particles of rock and glass. If you're outside, you need to cover your eyes. If it gets in your eyelids, it'll scratch your corneas every time you blink. It's like the earth is trying to blind us so we don't have to see what's coming next. Stay inside. Tape the windows. Don't let the outside in. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory is still trying to transmit data, or at least they were an hour ago. They monitor the ground deformation in real time. They saw the land rising, a slow-motion inhalation before the scream. But knowing it's coming and being able to do something about it are two very different things. All the sensors did was count down the seconds to our eviction. A VEI Eight eruption is the highest level on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. It's defined by ejecting more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of debris. It's the kind of event that changes the history of a planet. We aren't just a news story anymore. We are a geological layer. Millions of years from now, some other species will find this gray band in the rock and wonder what we were.
The air out there smells like sulfur and burnt matches. It's the smell of the deep earth, stuff that hasn't seen the light of day in 500,000 years. It's suffocating. I've got a wet cloth over my face, but I can still taste it. It's the taste of a world that's decided it's done with us. We're just the leftovers of a much older, much hotter story.
I'm hearing reports of roof collapses in Des Moines now. People thought they could just shovel it off like snow, but ash is twice as heavy, and it doesn't melt. When it gets wet, it turns into something like concrete. It's a trap. You go up there to save your house, and the weight of the world just brings the ceiling down on top of you. Stay off the roofs. The first eruption 2.1 million years ago formed the Huckleberry Ridge Tuff. It was one of the largest individual volcanic eruptions known to exist. We think we're so powerful with our cities and our technology, but we're just ants living on the back of a sleeping giant. The giant just shifted in its sleep, and everything we've built in the last few centuries is falling through the cracks. I've got a candle burning here. It's the only light I have besides the glow of the radio tubes. The emergency lights in the hall flickered out 10 minutes ago. It's funny how fast you get used to the dark. You start to rely on your ears. Every creak of the building sounds like the earth moving. Every gust of wind sounds like a voice. I'm not sure which is worse. The USGS says the Yellowstone Plateau volcanic field has seen 3 of these super eruptions. We are the 4th. It's a cycle as old as the continent itself. We just happen to be the generation that was home when the bill came due. We've spent our lives acting like the world was a stage built for us, but it turns out we were just the opening act for the next era. If you can hear this, check on your neighbors, especially the ones who don't have anyone. We can't rely on the government anymore. The roads are blocked and the radios are silent. It's just us. We're the only ones who can keep each other human in a world that's turning to stone. Share your water. Share your light. Don't let the gray take your heart too. I'm looking at a photo of my family. They're in Seattle. The models say the ash hit there hours ago. I haven't been able to get through. The lines are dead. I have to believe they're okay. I have to believe they found a basement, a mask, a way. That's the only thing keeping me at this microphone. The hope that someone I love is listening to the same static I am. The generator is coughing. The air filter is probably shot. I don't know how much longer this signal will hold. But if this is the last time you hear my voice, remember this. We are still here. The sky is dark and the world is cold, but we are still here. Keep your radio on. Keep your fire burning. I'll keep talking until the lights go out for good. The silence from the federal government isn't a conspiracy. It's a matter of physics. The USGS Volcanic Hazards Program has warned for years that even a millimeter of volcanic ash can cause high-voltage flashovers and widespread electrical grid failure. The transformers are popping like firecrackers across the Midwest. When the grid goes, the internet follows, and with it, our ability to see the world beyond our own front porch. I just got a message from a ham operator in Casper. He says the weight on the roofs is becoming unbearable. Research from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln confirms that ashfall from a supereruption would be thick enough to collapse roofs across the Great Plains. It's not like snow that you can wait for the sun to melt. This is pulverized rock. It's heavy, it's unrelenting, and it's turning every home into a potential tomb. We always looked at Yellowstone as a park, a place for vacations. We forgot it's a volcanic field that ejected approximately 1,000 cubic kilometers of material during the Lava Creek Tuff eruption 640,000 years ago. That's enough rock to bury the entire state of Texas 5 feet deep. We are currently living through the sequel to a prehistoric nightmare, and the scale of it is simply too big for the human mind to grasp. If you're trying to drive out of the fallout zone, stop. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network notes that volcanic ash is composed of tiny, jagged particles of rock and natural glass. It's highly abrasive. It doesn't just clog your air filter, it shreds the internal components of your engine. I've seen 3 cars abandoned on the road outside the station already. Their engines are seized, and the drivers are out there walking through the grit. The sky isn't just dark, it's a bruised, sickly purple. NASA has proposed that a major Yellowstone eruption would likely produce a volcanic winter, potentially lowering global temperatures by several degrees for years. We aren't just looking at a bad week or a bad month. We are looking at the end of summer. We are looking at a world where the sun is a memory and the crops never stand a chance to grow. Computer modeling from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems suggested that ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. It's not just a Wyoming problem. It's a New York problem. It's a Los Angeles problem. The jet stream is a conveyor belt of ash, carrying the pulverized remains of the Rocky Mountains and dumping them on every skyscraper and suburb in the lower 48. There is nowhere left to run. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory is still trying to transmit data, but the sensors are being buried. They monitor seismic activity and ground deformation in real time, but when the ground is moving in feet instead of millimeters, the instruments just snap. It's like trying to use a stethoscope to listen to a heartbeat during a plane crash. We have all the data in the world, and none of it can stop what's happening. I'm looking at the water in my canteen. It's cloudy. The ash clogs water filters nationwide, from city-scale treatment plants to the little plastic pitcher in your fridge. If you're drinking unfiltered water, you're drinking glass. It'll tear your insides up. Boil what you have, let the sediment settle, and pray the rain doesn't bring more toxins down from the clouds. We're learning the hard way what's essential. The 1.3 million-year-old eruption was another one of the 3 super events that shaped this plateau. Each one changed the chemistry of the atmosphere. We find the ash in the soil of the Gulf of Mexico. We find it in the ice of Greenland. This volcano is a global architect. It doesn't just destroy, it rebuilds the world in its own image. We just happen to be the debris it's clearing away to make room for the next layer.
Don't breathe the air if you can help it. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network warns that this stuff is toxic to inhale. It's not just dust, it's chemicals. It's sulfur, it's fluorine. It gets into your lungs and stays there, turning into a heavy mud that you can't cough up. If you have an N95 mask, wear it. If you don't, use a thick towel. Just keep the glass out of your blood.
The probability of this happening in any given year was estimated at 0.00014%. We lived our lives on that decimal point. We built cities, raised families, and made plans based on the idea that exceedingly low meant never. But never is a word the Earth doesn't understand. The clock has been ticking for 640,000 years, and today it finally hit zero. The math doesn't matter when you're standing in the fallout. I heard a report that the breadbasket is gone. The Great Plains, where we grow the food that feeds the world, is under a foot of gray grit. You can't grow wheat in volcanic glass. You can't graze cattle on poisoned grass. The food chain isn't just broken, it's been incinerated. Total collapse of the agricultural system isn't a theory anymore. It's what's for dinner. Or what isn't?
A VEI-8 eruption is defined as an event that ejects more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. To put that in perspective, imagine a mountain the size of Everest being turned into dust and blown into the sky in a single afternoon. That's what we're dealing with. It's not a mountain blowing its top. It's the crust of the earth collapsing into a void. It's a hole in the world that nothing can fill. The ash is getting into the station now. I can see it dancing in the beam of my flashlight. It's fine as flour and gets through every crack in the door. I've taped the windows, but it doesn't matter. It's in the electronics, it's in my clothes, it's in my throat. It's a patient invader. It doesn't need to break the door down. It just waits for you to breathe. The USGS says the Yellowstone Plateau volcanic field has 3 distinct calderas. They are scars on the face of the planet. Today, a 4th scar is being carved. We used to walk over these calderas, taking pictures of the colorful pools and the bubbling mud. We were walking on the lid of a furnace, and we were too distracted by the beauty to notice the heat rising through our shoes. The power grid's failure isn't just about the lights, it's about the pumps. No power means no water in the pipes. No power means no heat in the winter that's coming. The USGS warned that even a millimeter causes flashovers, and we've got centimeters piling up on the insulators. The engineers are probably working themselves to death out there, but you can't fight a volcano with a bucket of cleaning solvent. NASA once proposed a way to settle down supervolcanoes by drilling into them and pumping in water to cool the magma. It was a billion-dollar plan that never left the drawing board. We had the ideas, we had the warnings, but we didn't have the will to act on a threat that felt like science fiction. Now, science fiction is the only reality we have left, and the water we needed is falling as acid rain. The total volume of material from the first super eruption was 2,500 times larger than the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. Think about those videos of the mountains sliding away, the forest being leveled like matchsticks. Now multiply that by 2,000. It's a scale of violence that shouldn't be possible on a planet as quiet as this one. We are seeing the true face of the Earth, and it is terrifying. I'm thinking about the person who called in from Denver earlier. She said the sky was so thick she couldn't see the street lamp across the road. That's the reality now. A world where your horizon is only 10 feet away. We've spent our lives looking at the stars, looking at the future. Now, we're just looking for the next step, without tripping over the debris of our old lives. The radio is my only connection to you. If the transmitter fails, I'll still be here, talking into the dark, hoping the vibrations of my voice reach someone, somewhere. We've been here before. Our ancestors watched the sky turn black and felt the ground shake. And they survived. They found a way through the winter. We have to believe that we are made of the same stuff they were, one breath at a time.
6 months in, and the sky is still a bruised, sickly purple. NASA scientists once warned that a major Yellowstone eruption would likely produce a volcanic winter, potentially lowering global temperatures by several degrees for years to come. I'm feeling it now. It's mid-July, but I can see my breath in the studio. The solar panels are useless under this shroud, and the diesel for the backup generator is a liquid gold I'm running out of. I got a brief signal from a ham operator in Nebraska before the static swallowed him. He described the breadbasket of America as a gray desert. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln had warned that ashfall would be thick enough to collapse roofs across the Great Plains and clog engines and water filters nationwide. He said the silence out there is the loudest thing he's ever heard. No birds, no tractors, just the weight of the sky pressing down on the barns. We always thought the danger was the fire, the lava, the immediate explosion. But the USGS Volcanic Hazards Program tried to tell us the real killer was the electricity. Even a single millimeter of volcanic ash can cause high-voltage flashovers and widespread electrical grid failure. We built a civilization on the back of lightning, and it only took a dusting of glass and rock to bring the whole machine to a grinding, permanent halt. I remember reading about the 640,000-year-old Lava Creek Tuff eruption. The National Park Service records show it ejected approximately 1,000 cubic kilometers of material into our atmosphere. Back then, there were no power lines to snap, no jet engines to choke. The Earth just took a deep breath of ash and moved on. We're the ones who made ourselves vulnerable by building a world that requires a clear sky to function. Computer modeling from geochemistry, geophysics, geosystems suggested that ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. They were right. I've heard reports of gray snow falling on the beaches of Maine and the piers in San Francisco. A 3,000-mile shroud. It doesn't matter where you run. The volcano has a long reach, and it has claimed the entire continent as its own.
The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says this stuff is more than just dust. It's composed of tiny, jagged particles of rock and natural glass. It's abrasive. It's toxic. Every breath I take feels like I'm swallowing microscopic razor blades. I've been wearing this damp cloth over my face for weeks, but I can still taste the sulfur and the grit. My lungs are becoming a map of the disaster.
The USGS monitors this place through the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, watching every tremor and every thermal shift in real time. They saw the ground deformation. They saw the seismic swarms. They sounded the alarm. But how do you evacuate a third of a continent? We are a species of too late. We wait for the ground to open before we believe the floor is falling through. I keep thinking about that probability figure that USGS used to cite. 0.00014% annually. A number so small it felt like a promise that this would never happen in our lifetime. But exceedingly low isn't zero. We gambled on the math and lost. The planet doesn't care about our statistics. It operates on a clock that measures in millions of years, and our entire history is just a second of its time. The ash has a weight you wouldn't believe. It's not like snow that melts. It just gets heavier when it rains. I heard a story about a school in Wyoming where the roof just gave up. One minute the kids were huddled in the gym, and the next the sky was inside with them. There's no shelter when the air itself turns to lead. You just hope you're not under the wrong beam when it happens. Water is the new currency. The filters are all clogged with that fine glass silt. People are trying to boil the ash melt, but the chemicals don't just boil away. The University of Nebraska warned us about this, clogged water filters nationwide. I have 3 gallons left in the back room. I'm sipping it like it's the last bottle of wine on earth. If the rain doesn't clear, I don't know what's next. The silence of the birds is what gets me. They were the first to go, their little lungs unable to handle the glass in the air. Now the only sound is the wind whistling through the radio tower and the occasional groan of a building settling under the weight of the fallout. It's a lonely world. 107.1 FM. I'm talking to ghosts and the people who are about to become them. NASA's idea to cool the magma by drilling into the caldera? It sounds like a dream now. They thought they could save us by venting the heat, but the heat found its own way out. We spent our money on wars and apps while the furnace was stoking itself right under our feet. We were so busy looking at our screens that we didn't notice the ground was rising. The 2.1 million-year-old eruption was the big one, the Huckleberry Ridge Tuff. It created a caldera that stretched across 3 states. We're seeing that scale again. The maps we grew up with are useless now. State lines don't exist under 6 feet of ash. There is no Montana, no Wyoming, no Idaho. There is only the zone, and the long, cold shadow it casts over everything else. I've started naming the cracks in the ceiling. One looks like the Mississippi River. Another looks like a lightning bolt. It keeps my mind off the fact that the generator is coughing. When the lights go, I'll have to switch to the hand crank. I'll keep the signal alive as long as my arms can move. You need to know you're not alone out there, even if I'm just a voice in a box. The USGS says the probability of another caldera-forming event is low, but the probability of a smaller, yet still devastating, lava flow is much higher. But this wasn't a small one. This was the Big Rip. The crust didn't just crack, it unzipped. We are living through a geological reset. The Earth is reclaiming the space we occupied, and it's doing it with the cold indifference of a mountain. Is anyone still in Chicago? I heard the ash reached the Great Lakes 2 days ago. They said the water turned to a gray slurry, killing the fish by the millions. If you can hear me in the Windy City, stay inside. Don't try to drive. The ash will turn to concrete in your engine and leave you stranded in a graveyard of steel. Wait for the light, if it ever comes. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network warned that the long-term effects of inhaling this glass would be devastating. Silicosis, scarring of the lungs. We're all breathing in the end of the world, one tiny shard at a time. I can feel my chest tightening. I wonder if the last person on Earth will die from a broken heart, or just a pair of lungs that turn to stone. I remember a girl who used to call this station Sarah. She wanted to hear songs about the ocean. Sarah, if you're out there, I hope you made it to the coast. I hope the Pacific is still blue where you are. I'm playing these records for you, even if the needle is skipping because of the dust. We have to keep the music going. It's the only thing that separates us from the stones. The USGS says the ash will eventually settle, but the volcanic winter could last a decade. 10 years of gray, 10 years of hunger. We're going to have to learn how to be a different kind of human, one that doesn't take the sun for granted, one that knows the value of a single clean glass of water. We're being stripped down to our bones, and we'll see what's left when the dust clears. This is 107.1 FM, the last frequency. My name is Elias, and I'm still here. The fuel gauge is on empty, and the air is getting thick, but I'm not signing off yet. If you can hear this, you are the proof that we are still here. Keep your radios tuned. Keep your fires burning. We've been through the dark before, and we'll find the dawn again. One day at a time. The silence from the federal government is the loudest sound I've ever heard. We were told the USGS monitors every tremor through the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, tracking seismic activity and ground deformation in real time. We trusted the sensors. We believed that a warning would come months, maybe years before the crust gave way. But nature doesn't always follow the script we write for it. The alerts came too late for the millions in the blast zone. I just got a garbled message from a ham radio operator in Denver. He says the weight of the ash is doing what no army could. It's leveling the city. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln warned us about this. Ashfall is deceptively heavy. It's not like snow. It doesn't melt. When it gets wet, it turns into a leaden slurry that collapses roofs across the Great Plains. People are being buried in their own living rooms. If you are trying to move, stop. The USGS Volcanic Hazards Program is clear. Even a single millimeter of ash can trigger high-voltage flashovers, Our electrical grid wasn't built for this. The insulators are failing, and the transformers are exploding in a shower of blue sparks. The national power grid is a memory now. We are a continent of islands, separated by miles of darkness and the abrasive grit of a dying world. I'm looking at a photo of the 640,000-year-old Lava Creek Tuff eruption. Back then, it ejected 1,000 cubic kilometers of material into the sky. It's hard to wrap the human mind around that number. Imagine a mountain range turned into dust and thrown into the wind. That's what is currently sitting on your lungs, on your car, and on the crops that were supposed to feed us this winter. NASA once proposed a plan to drill into the magma chamber to settle the supervolcano down by cooling it. They thought they could vent the heat and turn it into geothermal energy. It was a billion-dollar dream that stayed on the drawing board. Now that heat has vented itself. Instead of a power source, we got a planetary reset button. We chose to ignore the giant under our feet until it woke up and spoke. The wind is shifting. Computer modeling from the journal Geochemistry, Geophysics, Geosystems suggested that ash would reach both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts within days. It's not just a regional disaster, it's a continental shroud. From New York to San Francisco, the sun is a pale, sickly coin in a bruised sky. The breadbasket of America is now a gray desert where nothing will grow for a generation. I've had a caller, a mechanic named Miller, who's been trying to keep a rescue truck running in Des Moines. He says the ash is like liquid sandpaper. It clogs the filters in seconds and shreds the internal cylinders. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network says the same thing is happening to our bodies. The jagged particles of rock and glass are toxic. Every breath is a gamble. Every mile driven is a death sentence for the machine. We're entering the second week of the volcanic winter. NASA's climate scientists warned that a major eruption could lower global temperatures by several degrees for years. We're seeing it already. The frost is creeping across the windows in mid-July. The birds have gone silent. They were the first to know. Now we're just waiting for the first real snow to mix with the ash and create a concrete winter that never ends. The USGS says the probability of this happening in any given year was only 0.00014%. We lived our lives based on those odds. We built glass cities and digital empires on a foundation of unlikely. But unlikely just happened. The odds don't matter when you're the one holding the bill. We are the generation that finally saw the clock strike midnight on a geological scale. If you're listening in a shelter, remember, water is your most precious resource. The ash will clog any filter system not designed for fine particulates. Don't drink from the taps once the pressure drops. The reservoirs are contaminated with heavy metals and glass. Boil what you can, but filter it through the densest cloth you have first. It won't be perfect, but it might keep you alive another day. There's a rumor that the government has moved to the bunkers in the mountains, but the mountains are where the fire started. There is no away to go to. When the Yellowstone Plateau volcanic field decides to move, it moves the entire world. The 3 previous super eruptions shaped the very geography of this continent. We are just witnesses to the 4th act, watching the map being redrawn in real time. A VEI 8 eruption is the highest rating on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. It means mega-colossal. It means more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of debris. To put that into perspective, every building in America could be ground into dust, and it still wouldn't equal the volume of what Yellowstone just threw into the air. We aren't just dealing with a disaster. We are dealing with an erasure of the world as we knew it. I can hear the wind howling through the transmitter tower. It sounds like a ghost. I wonder how many other stations are still out there. I've been scanning the bands, but it's mostly static and the occasional automated emergency loop. If you're a human being and you can hear me, please don't lose heart. The ash is heavy, but the human spirit has a way of finding the gaps in the rubble. My generator is down to its last gallon. I've been rationing the power, only coming on for 10 minutes every hour. It's strange how much you miss the hum of a refrigerator or the glow of a street lamp when they're gone. The darkness is absolute out there. No stars, no moon, just the ceiling of ash that we've built for ourselves. I'm going to stay here until the last drop of gas is gone. I remember a scientist from the YVO who once said that Yellowstone is a living system. It breathes, it swells, it rests. We treated it like a tourist attraction, a place to see geysers and take photos. We forgot that the old faithful we loved was just a safety valve for a pressure cooker the size of a state. Now the lid has blown off, and the steam has turned to fire. To the people in the Great Plains, I know the weight is unbearable. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln researchers warned that even a few inches of ash could destroy the structural integrity of most modern buildings. If you see cracks in your ceiling, get out. Find a reinforced structure. The ash doesn't care if it's your home. It only cares about gravity. Don't let the roof become your headstone. They call this the day America went dark, but the darkness is spreading. The volcanic winter will cross the oceans. The sulfur dioxide in the stratosphere will reflect the sun's heat back into space. Crops will fail in Europe, in Asia, in South America. This is a global event, a shared tragedy. We are all citizens of the ash now, bound together by the same cold gray horizon. I'm looking at a tally I scratched on the wall. 14 days since the first tremor. It feels like 14 years. I'm going to try one more time to reach the relay station in Cheyenne. If they're still there, maybe we can link the signals. If not, I'll just keep talking to the void. Someone has to keep the record. Someone has to say that we were here, and we tried. The air is getting colder. I can see my breath in the studio now. It's funny. I spent my whole life complaining about the heat, and now I'd give anything for a single afternoon of August sun. If you have wood, burn it. If you have blankets, share them. We have to be the warmth for each other now. The earth has gone cold, so we have to stay hot. This is Elias on 107.1 FM, the last frequency. My signal might flicker, but my voice is still steady. If you can hear this, you are the resistance against the dark. You are the proof that the world hasn't ended as long as one person is listening. I'll be back in an hour, if the fuel holds. Until then, stay safe, stay warm, and keep your eyes on the horizon. The dawn is coming, eventually. The sheer scale of what we are living through is hard to grasp. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the Lava Creek Tuff eruption, about 640,000 years ago, ejected a staggering 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. That is enough rock and ash to bury a city several miles deep. We used to look at those layers of tuff in the canyon walls as ancient history, never truly believing we would become the next layer for future geologists to find. It isn't just the weight of the ash that's killing the grid, it's the chemistry. The U.S. Geological Survey notes that even a single millimeter of volcanic ash can trigger high-voltage flashovers. These are essentially massive short circuits that fry the insulators on power lines. Across the country, the lights didn't just go out because of the wind. They went out because the very air became a conductor for destruction, leaving us in this total electrical silence. The International Volcanic Health Hazard Network warns that this grit we're breathing is actually tiny, jagged particles of rock and natural glass. It's abrasive and toxic. Every breath without a mask is like taking sandpaper to your lungs. I can hear the coughing in the streets when the wind dies down. We are waiting for the sulfur to clear, but the USGS records remind us that these events don't settle in weeks. They reshape the world for generations.